Right, hello there, guys. We are live. Right, the moment I was about to go live, waiting in the wings here on StreamYard, bloody Sadiq. No, he's gone. We had someone called Sadiq Khan, who you'd speculated may have been James, due to the background noise coming from him last time.
Yes, Sadiq Khan is another one now that was invaded our stream.
I mean, it could have been the actual Sadiq Khan, hoping to clear up these misconceptions about him struggling in London versus Bailey. Um, we can only hope. But we're not due the London one. Are we due the London one later on today?
I've heard we will probably get the result for London by the end of today, or at least I really
Okay.
hope we will.
I hope so too. I feel like this has been it's been a while. That and the Scotland results, it feels like some of this has been drawn out for a good while now.
Yeah, the Scotland one I think is the one that's going to take the longest. I know that there will be council results called on Sunday, but I think it's very few. I don't think it's any more than 200 councillors, but I'm not too sure on that. But for Scotland, I think the count is taking so long that I don't think we're going to get the full result in and by until tomorrow afternoon, I think.
So speaking of results that we do have at the moment, then I understand. Have we got all the seats in for Wales now?
Yes, we have got the full results in for Wales. They just finished counting the list for South Central Wales, and the result breakdown for the Senate is as follows: Labour 30 plus 1, Tory 16 plus 5, Plaid 13 plus 1, Liberal Democrat 1, no net gain, and Conservatives, not Conservatives, sorry, UKIP 0 minus 7. So basically, the UKIP vote was completely mopped up by the Tories in Wales.
So based on these numbers, then so last time Labour, if it's been a change of one, so last time Labour got 29. So they needed help from, I assume it was a deal that they made with Plaid to stay in power there. Would that have been right?
Yeah, but before we discuss Wales a bit more, Sam is in the waiting room, I think, because he's posted in the private chat and he's got breaking
Oh, is it?
news.
All right. Let me just add him in then.
Hello.
This is typical, by the way, for all the anti-Welsh bias I get accused of on the channel. We're just talking about the results of the Welsh Senedd, and then half a minute into it, we're like, "But fuck that, we've got a new person. Let's move on." Anyway,
Am I able to share some breaking news?
Go ahead.
the Welsh viewers are not going to be pleased, but yes, you can.
Well, it's success for Labour. Labour have now just officially won Salford's mayor with 59% of the vote on the first round.
Nice.
Oh, so that's good news for them then.
So Paul Dennett received 49.6% in 2016 when he was last up, and now he's increased his share of the vote to 59%. And a lot of people in the MEN, I know this because the MEN has spoke to some people who I've spoke to, reporting he's riding off the Burnham wave. Burnham is that result for GM.
Burnham's got his own wave.
Yeah, well,
Goodness me.
I know, but Burnham's expected to get an unprecedented result. He won 60. I know I was mentioning this to you yesterday before I had to sadly leave, but he won 63% last time, and from some areas are reporting he may receive over 75% on the first round.
Crikey! So that's going to be quite the result when it comes in, then, isn't it? And Lee in the chat has just said, no. Speaking of Labour in Wales, no. Labour had to deal with the one Lib Dem in Wales, rather than Plaid.
Yeah, they did. They were in coalition with Kirsty Williams, who was the Liberal Democrat MS for the Welsh Senedd. She was in coalition with them. She basically agreed with them on everything. If I was to make an analogy between the two, she was to Welsh Labour, the Welsh Government and the Senedd, what Kamala Harris is to the US Senate. That's the best comparison I can make between the two, because she pretty much just voted for whatever Mark Drakeford and the Welsh Government put forward in the Senedd. She did not stand for election this time, and her seat didn't go to the Lib Dems, but the Lib Dems won a vote on the list vote, and so Jane Dodds is now an MS in the Welsh Senedd, and she will basically take up the same role that Kirsty Williams did. It's worth noting as well that Jane Dodds is the former Lib Dem MP for Brecon and Branfordshire. She won the by-election in 2019, but she lost her seat to the Conservatives in the general election, and now she's a member of the Senedd instead.
All right, okay. With Labour being placed on 30 seats now, then, because they've got exactly half of the seats in the Senedd now. So, have they said, or do you expect they're going to be trying to rely on that extra vote, or do you think they'll push on as they are with 30?
I think they'll probably go with the Lib Dem because they're pretty much guarantees that whatever they want to do, they will successfully do. They don't need to, because I don't think the opposition in Wales will be to Labour will be as strong as it was before, because all the knuckle dragger parties have been kicked out. So Abolish the Welsh Assembly, UKIP, Brexit Party, or Reform Party as they now rebranded themselves, they've all been kicked out the Senedd. So the only opposition that Labour really has now are the Conservatives and Plaid Cymru, and Plaid Cymru is not exactly like a staunch, strong opposition to Labour. So I think that Drakeford is probably going to have a lot easier of a time over the next 5 years than he did beforehand, because all the knuckle draggers are gone.
It's interesting, and I'll give Sam a chance to talk as well, because I know he's just joined us. But I did want to point out it's interesting that these set of elections that we've had thus far, Wales Labour managed to get themselves half the seats; they'll be the ones in power as before. Scotland, although we're awaiting the full results, I think it's a fair expectation. The SNP, well, we know the SNP will be in power. Whether it's a majority and what size majority, we'll find out. And then as for the local elections and all the rest of it, it's the Tories who have done very well. Again, the incumbent government, specifically affecting England. It's you could easily say there's a lot more to it than this, but looking at it through a single lens of incumbent governments doing well in the age of coronavirus, this seems to line up on that metric at least as well. I'm not trying to say that's what's responsible for the results we've had anywhere. I'm just saying it's just an interesting observation.
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to broaden it out to the other places, now that we've discussed Wales, oh, there's two Sams. The other places are Scotland. As you said, it's pretty much the case there. The SNP are going to be the next government in Scotland, and they've picked up 3 seats, 1 off Labour, 2 off the Tories. Whether they get a majority or not is still in question. The interesting thing is the Scottish Conservatives think they will get a majority, which is an intriguing statement from them. But whether or not that is them playing mind games, in that they're saying they'll get a majority, and if they don't, they'll go, oh, they did worse than what we would say. We said they would, so screw them. It is anybody's guess.
Oh, so trying to set it up to be like, oh, you guys are going to get a majority, and then they don't, and then they go, oh, you didn't get one, I guess no referendum for you.
If they're playing those sorts of mind games or not, I don't know. It's anybody's guess. But yeah, that's how it's broke down in Scotland. The thing that's been worth noting in Scotland is there has been a major unionist tactical vote going on in Scotland. You've seen Labour decline in big areas and Tories go up, and Tories decline massively and Labour go up. There's been a lot of unionist tactical voting going on in Scotland, and the SNP didn't anticipate that there would have been that much unionist tactical voting going on. It hasn't shifted that many results to either side. But what it has done is it has prevented the SNP from winning certain target marginals that they were looking to win. I think the Eastwood seat in the Greater Glasgow area was a big SNP target seat. The Conservatives held on to it because Labour voters tactically voted Conservative to stop the SNP from winning. So while there hasn't been that much of a shift in terms of seats, what has happened is the SNP have been denied from winning key marginals that they needed to win for a majority.
I see. And that's been going both ways. Labour voters voting Tory, Tory voters voting Labour. Mix anyone else in there for that matter. Just in certain seats, people doing their best to avoid, well, either an SNP gain or an SNP hold if you're on the unionist side.
Yeah, pretty much the way it's broken down is like if you see whichever unionist candidate has the best chance of winning, that's who people have been voting for. Whether it's Conservative, Lib Dem, or Tory, doesn't matter who it is, so long as they're a unionist.
Sam, sorry, go on, Tom.
I just want to quickly say before to go on Sam, as for England, it's more of the same of what we've had over the last 2 days. Labour's been getting mopped up in pretty much most areas.
If you're doing England, I'll bring up England's results on the older screen for everyone as well.
Right. Basically, it's just more of the same. Labour's been getting mopped up throughout most of the country, and they've just been making continuous losses. They've lost a few seats.
Now.
Yeah, they're minus 200. They've lost a few seats in Lancashire. I've noticed that. They have. The Tories have gained Cannock Chase from no overall control, and Labour lost a few seats there as well. But there has been a little bit of positive news for Labour in the south. In my city of Portsmouth, Labour picked up 2 councillors in Central Southsea off of the Lib Dems, and they picked up a seat in Charles Dickens' ward. So there has been some positive news for Labour in the south, at least. But mostly is still bad news overall. And as for mayoralties, we've only got one result in from one area, and that was the West Midlands with Birmingham, where Andy Street went from 46% of the vote, not Andy Street, Liam Bryan, who is the Labour candidate, went from 46% in 2017 to 48%, and Andy Street's vote
We've got a key. Oh, sorry.
Held steady. And that was all I was going to say. That's all that's happened in England.
Thank you for that. Were you about to jump in, Sam?
Yeah, sorry, I currently just got a bit overexcited there. I thought there was a key seat in the Scottish Parliament being declared, but it's just the preliminary, like, they have to declare certain like abnormalities with the like with ballots, if there are any, before they actually declare the full result.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, I mean, it's been a remark. I mean, in the end, it's been such. I mean, I know we don't know the full results everywhere, but it has been so remarkable where now, as someone who obviously is a member of Labour and he's a supporter of Labour, there are a lot of positive stories in many parts of the country for Labour. I mean, something that it looks like Labour are probably going to gain the West of England mayor off the Conservatives. Now, that is brilliant, but it is somewhere that they should have won in the first place anyway. But it's still a gain. Dan Norris has ended up getting 33% on the first round, and the Conservatives 29%. But then the rest of the Greens and the Lib Dems have got quite a lot, and the Lib Dems in there tend to be more left wing than other Lib Dems in other parts of the country. So I don't really know how the Tories are going to get more second preferences there. Obviously, you know, Liverpool City region, obviously the amount of problems that have gone on there, but in both the Liverpool mayor and the Liverpool City region have both been out overwhelmingly re-elected. It looks like the new Cayman's Peterborough mayoralty, which the Lib Dems are hoping to gain, do have a chance at on the second round. In the first round, the Conservatives got 44 and the Lib Dems got 33, and Labour got 24. And it's very likely that most of Labour's second round, out of Labour's 5,500 voters, the Lib Dems need 2,800 of them to have put the Lib Dems on second, because I very much doubt a single Labour voter would have put the Conservatives as their second preference. Probably didn't do a single preference because they, don't necessarily like the Lib Dems either there. But and then obviously we don't know the results yet for Greater Manchester, which is the last thing I'll say on this. But it does look like, I mean, from what I've been hearing and from what even most people all across Greater Manchester is that Burnham's going to win, overwhelmingly, which probably puts him considering at the moment he's not only talked up to be next leader of the Labour Party, he's also odds on to be the next leader of the Labour Party. And considering how bad Labour have done in many other parts of England, Burnham may have done brilliant in areas of Greater Manchester where the Tories gained seats off Labour in the 2019 election. I mean, in 2017, Andy Burnham won 211 out of 215 wards in all of Greater Manchester, and there is talk that he's going to win every one of them this time around, which would mean that which would be just. I mean, there are areas in Greater Manchester that vote Tory overwhelmingly, but there's from the doorstep, there's people who are voting Tory at the council but voting for Labour and voting for Andy Burnham as GM mayor. Final thing I'll just say is that, I mean, in the end, it shows up. All of, I mean, obviously, I'm not the biggest Starmer supporter, but it shows up. All of the responses that Starmer and the Labour front bench are coming out with today about how they've lost this election, virtually, in England, have done bad. It were all clearly rehearsed because they were expecting to do bad, not this bad, but then be able to blame it on Corbyn, blame it on the pandemic. But it's because it's gone that bad. I mean, the thing is, this is an interesting thing I've just picked out. Currently, nationally, in the council elections, the Tories are on 36 and Labour are on 29. And obviously, you think, right, that's 7 behind. It's not good, but Labour were 12 behind in the last election. On average, when these local authorities were last up, Labour had, on average, 32% of the vote, which means that Starmer has actually gone 3% backwards when Corbyn was leading these seats. And it seems to be a blame game rather than what we can do to fix it. I mean, if you listen to it's comedy gold, actually. This is the last thing I'll say before I take us. I'll pass it on to either you or Thomas. The response from Starmer is that we haven't been able to set out a vision because of the pandemic. I mean, are you really saying that now when the pandemic's been around for 13 months? Are you really going to say that after this? And the idea, I just don't believe any of Channel 4 did a poll that the biggest reason why people didn't vote Labour was because of Keir Starmer's leadership. Now, I remember people telling me
I just want to say one thing on that poll.
Sorry,
just while you mentioned it.
A bit there.
No, that's fine. It's just that poll that you're quoting. I think I saw that online as well. And although the headline from it is, biggest reason people didn't vote Labour, Keir Starmer's leadership,
Yes.
There was a breakdown of all the different reasons that were given. I don't know whether people put their own reasons in or whether they chose from a selection. But when you look at the breakdown, it's a little bit less obvious. It was something like Keir Starmer's leadership on 11%, and then the next issue behind it 10%, and the next issue behind that 9%.
14% actually, Swiss. I don't know, by the way.
Yeah,
sorry?
You can hear the noise in the background.
But by the way,
14%. Sorry.
Okay, by the way, I've got 2 results in. Three results now. There's another result that's coming from West Midlands. So I'll start with the result from Rotherham because I think this is quite significant. Rotherham has had a massive Conservative surge. Rotherham has counted 14 out of 25 wards yesterday, and the rest are being done today. As it stands, the Labour Party has 18 councillors and the Conservatives have 15. But here's the important point. Before yesterday, not a single councillor in Rotherham Council was Tory, and they've now got 15 councillors.
So,
There are some remarkable.
So, in other words, if the local councils continue to trend as they are in that area, it could go Tory in the next locals and all that stuff.
Well, there's a whole bunch of areas that are serious concern. The thing that has to be noted about Rotherham Council, and I'm sure all the viewers here probably know about its reputation, is it is infamous for the grooming gang cover-up a few years back now, and its reputation was significantly damaged both at the local level and the national level as a result. So it is worth noting that the Conservative surge is largely as a result of that corruption that happened. So that is probably, much like Sheffield, an example of a local story that was always going to go badly for Labour because of how terrible Labour's council was, similar to Sunderland, really.
The moment you'd mentioned Rotherham and the Tories again seats, I thought, oh yeah, okay, that one comes as a little surprise, regardless of how the night. Well, I say the night the election's gone for them in various bits of the country.
So, anyways,
even if Labour did well tonight, they still would have got smashed there because of that scandal that happened, and it happens with every single local election. There'll always be a case where a party does well across the board, but there'll be that one area they get wrecked in, and it goes vice versa. They'll do badly, but they'll do well in another area because this is the local elections, and the local politics obviously has a factor on that. As for the... Go on.
Oh, sorry, if I can read a comment out very quickly, just because it's my neck of the woods. Apollo TD had said Tories won every county council seat in Newcastle under Lyme for Staffordshire County Council, showing good news for the 2019 elected MP for Newcastle under Lyme. Now, although I live in Stoke, Newcastle under Lyme is right next door to us, and in fact, where I work is technically within that constituency. So although we haven't had any votes taking place in Stoke here, well, actually, no. I think we've had a by-election for a single ward in Stoke Council. Although we haven't had sort of major bits of the council up for grabs, you can take indicators from the surrounding areas here. If Newcastle under Lyme is going a certain way, were Stoke to be voting at the moment, it would be emulating that. So I think we would have seen a deeper shade of blue round here if Stoke had been voting as well.
So a little question for Tom. Since due to the fact that for that council area you mentioned, due to the grooming gangs, you think due to the national disaster Labour's having and all the locals, you think that'll be overshadowed by the fact that it was mostly the local scandals that caused it to be destroyed in that area, rather than just it's because Keir Starmer's doing poorly in general and all that stuff?
I think the problem is that Labour has done so badly in England that it'll just sort of be grouped in with the terrible result overall. If you do badly nationwide, but you do particularly badly in one area, it has to be like a sort of catastrophic wipeout, similar to what happened in Ashfield in 2019, where Labour just got completely mopped up by Ashfield Independents and lost almost all of their seats to Ashfield Independents. If something like that happens, then people will go, okay, there's something that's gone on there at the local level for that to happen. But if it's just a big loss on top of an already wider loss, then people will just group it in with you doing terribly anyway. But the thing I wanted to point out, because this goes back to West Midlands mayoralty, so this is important, I got two results here. Walsall has declared its result. Andy Street's got 35,000 votes in Walsall, and Liam Breen got 19,887 votes. And another result in from Wolverhampton, Andy Street wins by 3,000 votes. Labour last won this area by 4,000 votes in 2017. So Andy Street is going to easily win the West Midlands mayoralty. That wasn't in any doubt, by the way. All polling pointed to that. But it's clear that he's basically mopping up the West Midlands outside of Birmingham.
So it's no longer going to be a neck-and-neck race for that mayoral elections from now on. It's going to be guaranteed Tory and all that stuff.
Well, it's hard to say how it will go moving forward, but it is part of a general trend that has been occurring in the West Midlands since 2015.
Sorry.
Go on.
I've just been playing calculator there, and I've just added up all the results for Burn and Andy Street so far, and it's currently Andy Street is currently on 290,729, and Liam Byrne is on 284,812. So there is currently only 6,000 votes in it.
I'd just like to welcome Cameron to the stream as well, who's joined us. I think it may have been a little while since you were last on, so I definitely want to make sure you get a chance to air what you make of what's been going on.
But yeah, just to finish off the point I was making, about the direction of the West Midlands, it's been shifting Tory since 2015. Whether it will continue in that way or not is hard to be seen, but I think it probably will. I'm not really sure what Labour can do to win back the West Midlands and just the Midlands in general, to be honest. The one thing that has been seen in the Midlands is it is a proper clean out for Labour. Like the Tories are doing a proper clean out there, it seems.
There's a candidate who potentially might have taken some votes off of them in Stoke North a couple of years ago. They would do well to ask him to be the official Labour candidate at the next general election. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Labour Party.
Well, that particular candidate did get about 100 more votes than the UR Northern Independent Party, UR. So maybe there is something to be taken from him.
When you're saying "ooh it sounds like you're doing. It almost sounds like one of those like 1960s Carry On films.
Well, that's basically what it is.
That's what you're going
because
for there.
yeah, that's what I'm going for. That campaign
sorry.
because that Carry On film, because basically that's what the NIP think anybody north of Watford is like. Like they basically think they are just like walking, talking stereotypes. As I said yesterday, I'm honestly surprised their logo is not a fucking whippet with a cigarette out of its mouth, a cloth cap on top of its head, and in both paws it's got pints and a coal pie. I'm honestly surprised it isn't that, because they just are the embodiment of a piss-take party designed to just take the piss out of northern stereotypes.
Did they run in? Did they run in many wards? Because I know they put a few people up. Did they have that many candidates?
Not that I'm aware of. All the focus was on Hartlepool and they flopped there, so I'm not too sure.
The party will, think they will disband soon, or you think they're just going to stick around for a bit before giving up and all that stuff?
They'll probably linger around. They won't be going anywhere, unfortunately, because. But to be honest with you, they're not going to be an electoral threat. They'll be a pest on Twitter, but outside of that, they're not going to be much of anything.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Cam.
Hello.
Yeah. So I'm in with some because I'm in a very loud place just now. So I thought I'd join. While I'm walking home to give you my thoughts. What's going on?
I thought I heard birdsong in the background. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Cam.
By the way, Cam, I heard that Doncaster did surprisingly well for Labour in the locals. Is that true?
Yeah, they did. They lost 3 seats to the Tories in re-marginal areas, and that's quite impressive. I mean, everyone expected the Tories to surge. But no, they didn't. They hold on. And Labour hold on in the mayorship.
So do you think this means that Labour might have a chance to reclaim your seat come the next election? Or
Interesting one. But where the Tories gained was in my seat. So I don't know. It's looking better than Rotherham. Next door. I'm quite I think they could get it back if they do as well as this Thursday in a general election. Yeah, they can. And 2017 was like a really high point for Labour. They did really well. So that on the back of that, in 2017 result locally, I think is a good result.
There's somebody, Lee Ball said to think that Labour could have ran the extremely uncontroversial Salma Yacoub, I think her name is, for West Midlands Mayor. Oh yes, Salma. She is appalling, to put it bluntly. For those of you who don't know, she was the opposition to Liam Byrne in the Labour primary for West Midlands Mayor. And she is a former Respect Party candidate who ran against Labour in the past, and she is just notorious for like numerous idiotic things that she said. The particular infamous thing that she was known for is she basically said that Labour should not criticise Muslim faith schools for promoting homophobia because they're Muslim. She was a dreadful candidate, and
so in other words, she would piss off both the social conservative voters and the social liberal voters. Typical Galloway.
Yeah, basically, her just being a part of Galloway's anti-Semitism incorporated party would have just been the cherry on top, really.
Now, Tom. George Galloway is a very good personal friend of mine. We've had.
You had like one conversation with him, sir. Swiss. That's all you did. You had one conversation. What was about
And I
Brexit?
will be, and I will be trading off of that for how many years to come. I just want to do a couple
excuse
comments
me.
from the chat here quickly. And hello to Callum. I'll bring you in just a moment. Well, we've got a busy house here today, haven't we? There's a lot of you in.
Indeed we have.
Apollo TD has said that the Tories have gained the Stoke Council by-election ward. So when I said just a few moments ago what we saw in Newcastle under Lyne, you'd expect as much if the Stoke Council was up for grabs. As far as that single ward within Stoke goes, that one has flipped blue. Liberal Zardos says, for those of us who are sick of the wokery, it is fun to watch Labour being torn a new one once again. But we do need some alternative in the long run, someone to be a credible challenger. And maybe the latter point is an interesting one to discuss what exactly we need from the Labour Party or an opposition party here, with the Tories doing so well right now. But one thing that I did want to mention, because I did find this very funny, and I assume you guys have seen this as well. There was a shadow minister, I think it was a shadow minister, who resigned from Labour yesterday, basically saying, yeah, Labour's way too London-centric and it's got a team of online woke social media warriors as its supporters or something like that. And I thought, my God, I'd expect
I
that from
don't
the
know
bloody
if I don't.
SNP or the
I don't
Tories
know if
criticising
Labour's.
one of their own.
So I don't know if Labour is too woke or not. I mean, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration. I think their biggest problem is they're not really standing for anything, really. But anyway, the only thing I can tell about the shadow cabinet is apparently that there are rumours that Angela Rayner is having issues with Keir Starmer, so there might be another leader versus deputy leadership clash since like Tom Watson and Corbyn.
Can I comment on this London thing? Because it's been something that's bugging me for a while, and it's a narrative that continues to be pushed predominantly by Blue Labour coalition and certain factions and groups of people within the Labour leadership. This idea that people who are in London are basically part of the elite and all this other nonsense. Basically, I honestly wonder how long working class people in London are going to put up with this slating from Blue Labour and Labour leadership members, because I think that if Labour carries on with this just slating of London and Londoners and portraying them as the elite that are basically responsible for all of the problems in Britain today, I think that London will go down the same route that the North East and the Midlands has gone down, which is basically, we're sick of you, you slate us all the time, you take us for granted, so we're just going to take our votes elsewhere. It's like what happened in the 2000s in the north of England when the BNP was surging there. Labour's attitude towards that wasn't to try and find out why they were voting BNP and address those problems. They just called them all thick racists and just completely took their votes for granted. And then a decade after that, they were all like, well, fuck you, and we're going to all vote Tory now, and that's what they did. And this isn't something that I think is pure speculation. I think it's beginning to happen. Look at what's happened in the London mayoralty with Sean Bailey and Sadiq Khan. Sean Bailey has, by all accounts, or at least the preliminary results bear it out anyway, done better than people expected him to do.
Yeah.
He's gained in Brent and Harrow and won that area. And he's had swings towards him in several parts of London, in North East London in particular. So I do wonder if Labour continues to go down this route of saying that basically everybody that lives in London lives the lifestyle of a banker that lives in two cities. How long will working class people there put up with that before they go, you know what, piss off and stop voting Labour?
So, do you think they would go to the Tories, Lib Dems, Greens, or a new party that might form in London?
I think it could just be split multiple different ways. If a new party was created, and I think I talked about this yesterday, if a new party that had a unique selling point like universal housing, UBI, mixed it in with environmentalism and populism, I think that party could do really well in London. And the more that Labour slates the place off, the better it will do.
There's a few comments that I want to read. Nick Yard said London is getting fed up. They didn't show up as much as expected. Where's my other one here? Apollo TD had said too woke is a big problem in Labour. Apparently, Yvette Cooper being lined up by Starmer to replace Dodds as Shadow Chancellor this week. Plebeian said, "Hi Swiss, as someone from Walsall, also a person who was a member of the Labour youth wing in the Walsall branch. If there is one thing that I can say destroyed Labour in the Black Country, it was momentum." Lee Ball says, "Dodds for leader, new slogan, quote, please vote for question mark, question mark, question mark." And I'm just mindful, guys, that the most recent person to join us is Callum. So if you're there, Mr.
I was about to ask,
Ferguson,
can I come in to report on the
just an
situation in
update on the
Scotland?
state of Scotland. Yeah, our
Well,
Scotland
just to say-
correspondent, if you will.
Yes, my constituency, home constituency, just declared, and interestingly, it showed the SNP down slightly to the benefit of Labour. And in fact, over the course of the whole country, Labour and the Conservatives are now pretty much neck and neck in terms of constituency percentages. The first Glasgow result just came in a few minutes ago as well, and it showed the Greens at about 8%. So if that was replicated on the list, it could be that they win quite a number of constituencies. So not constituencies, list seats. But we're still waiting quite a lot. There's a big delay because a lot of the counting for constituencies yesterday was delayed, which is then knocked on to today, where there are now more constituencies being counted. So we won't get a final result from Scotland for quite some time, but the Highlands and Islands region is now complete, and so they can eventually release their regional result.
So,
if I was going to ask you to hazard a guess, what's your gut instinct telling you about how things will ultimately end up?
My gut instinct is that the SNP will fall one seat short of a majority.
Oof.
Yay! Oh no.
Just came out of that.
So then,
Yeah,
so will we end up
I think
getting to the place where will we end up getting to the place where the SNP fall short of the majority by themselves, but there's a Scottish Green or something that takes them over the line? Is there then going to be a debate about whether or not they got a new referendum on the basis of an SNP majority or on the basis of a pro-independence majority? I can imagine there'll be a lot of hair splitting about that.
Excuse me just for a moment. There is another constituency just declaring. It seems like a very safe SNP. It's Almond Valley and Lothians. But I'll get to that in a moment. I think what's probably going to happen is that the SNP, if they don't actually win a majority on their own, even though there will be a majority in the Parliament for a referendum, because it will have been split between the SNP and the Greens, you'll see unionists arguing, well, you didn't win a majority on your own, so you can't have a referendum. The argument is most compelling from the SNP side on that winning a majority. That a lot of the rhetoric and conversation in the media around it is focused in on that specifically, and therefore, if the SNP don't win, then people will view that as a failure, even if they do increase the number of seats that they have and increase their vote. And even though all of the other parties combined, unionist parties, the Liberals, Conservatives, and Labour, despite all of their votes combined being less than the SNP, they'll still be viewed as denying the SNP a majority. The coverage of this election is really quite questionable. The narratives that are being spun about it, what's actually happening and what people say is happening are two very different things.
There is a couple of interesting things that are actually... Well, I've got a result from Glasgow. I might get the pronunciation wrong here, but Provan, I think it's pronounced. The SNP won it. I think it's an SNP safe seat anyway.
Provan.
They got
Glasgow.
Provan. They got 53% of the vote.
But the Greens did very well there.
Yeah, they did. They got 8%. The Labour vote declined here. Tory stayed the same, along with the Lib Dem. But it was a safe seat for the SNP anyway, so it's not really anything too special. The other interesting thing about the SNP is there was an article that was reported from the Telegraph in which the SNP are basically going to act like the Polish government did after Poland was invaded by the Germans and split between the Germans and the Soviet Union, in that they're going to go round to other countries in the world and speak to their leaders to try and get international recognition for an independent Scotland and try and put international pressure on Boris Johnson to give Scotland a referendum on independence. Yes,
I
they are.
completely believe that. Yeah, they'll
I'm pretty certain if they
definitely.
go to Spain, they'll tell them to bugger off since they're dealing with Catalonia.
Yeah, I don't think Spain will be. I don't know if that's remarkable though. Wow. I just have an update on the West Midlands mayor. There's only one. Obviously, this is one of the swing mayors that the Conservatives took last time and are expected to take again. There's one more area to declare, which is Dudley, and I'll say why that's important. But currently, at my calculations, Andy Street is currently on 48.8% of the vote. And obviously, Dudley, he won last time by 17,000. And I'm pretty sure, I've just worked out that if he won it by the same margin, he would get to over 50%. And I've got a sneaky suspicion he's going to increase his margin there. So it looks like Andy Street is just going to, he would have won anyway, even if it does go to the second round, but he will just trickle in and get over 50% of the vote. So we'll be re-elected in West Midlands, but that's not confirmed yet. But mathematically, I think it's already going to be confirmed.
Yeah, Dudley.
I'm sorry to jump in just on the back end of that. I'm going to have to drop out for about 5-10 minutes. I'm going to be listening in. So if you guys can just carry on as you are and read out the odd comment every now and then. I'll be back again soon.
Right.
Cheers.
Before reading out comments, I'll just comment on Dudley and then I'll let Cam comment about what he was going to say about the SNP acting like a government in exile. The Dudley result, I think he will almost certainly increase his majority there, because if the Dudley council elections are anything to go by, Labour got completely cleaned out in Dudley and the Tories won it from no overall control. So I think he will almost certainly win Dudley by an increased margin, and thus he will win the mayoralty of the West Midlands. And so, what do you think of the SNP acting like a government in exile, Callum? Is he
Sorry, I was muted. No, I was muted. Sorry. Although the SNP will act like a government in exile to some extent when it comes to international recognition, it'll be largely to try and prove that the SNP have some kind of legitimacy to hold a referendum, And I think that they will still push through referendum legislation, if not immediately, then at least at some point in the next 2 or 3 years. And it will probably end up in the Supreme Court. And it'll be up to the Supreme Court's ruling as to whether or not, does the vote in Scotland translate into a mandate for referendum? That's a question that will not be answered. Basically, either the UK government will do a U-turn to accept the result and to go for a referendum if they believe that they could win it. And it's possible that the unionist side could win a referendum and might go for it on that basis. And I'm just looking at the regional results for Skye, Lochaber and Badenoch, which was the Finance Secretary Kate Forbes' seat. The regional result shows the Ullapa Party on 789 votes. And All for Unity on 281 votes. For comparison, the SNP got 18,000, the Tories got 9,000, and the Liberal Democrats got 4,000. Labour also got 4,000, and the Greens also got 4,000. So that's just one constituency, and the regional results have still yet to come out, but it'll be coming close to see what the actual result is in the Highlands. And when they're declared, that will give us our first regional results, and we'll see how well the Greens have done. Because they're hopeful to get, I think, they're hoping to get 2 in Glasgow, 2 in Edinburgh, or Lothians, 1 in most other regions, and I'm not sure about in the Highlands. There's also a strong independent candidate called Andy Whiteman, who's standing on a land reform he's an independent standing for land reform in the Highlands. He's quite radical on his views on how land should be distributed. And I think it seems that we've got results coming in from the north of Scotland, Caithness, Sutherland, and Ross, that the SNP have got very big numbers up there as well, which suggests the SNP will probably, even though they won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the constituencies, they'll also win a list seat in that region.
Was that expected, or is that a gain?
That would be that I don't know if it would be a gain from last time, but it would definitely be close. I mean, they've came way out ahead in Caithness, Sutherland, and Ross, with the Liberal Democrats in second. That is what happened in the constituency as well. So when we do actually get the final result from the regional list in the Highlands, we'll actually be able to see how well they've done. But it does appear that the SNP's tactic of saying vote for SNP on both ballots has worked. Alapa has failed. I mean, the perfect thing about it was described yesterday's electoral asbestos, and Alex Salmond was weeping at the count yesterday.
That's a lovely sight.
By the way, I just
May I ask a question?
Wait, I just want to include the viewers to make sure they're not left out, so I'll read some comments here. Plebeian says, us Midlanders aren't slating the London Labour working class, but rather the Labour shadow front bench plastic working class, public school elites who talk a big game but don't explain how. Liberal Zardos says, Sturgeon is already saying a pro-independence majority is enough. Blind Fury, Labour needs to die as a party and new party in its place. Plebeian says, how the Midlands and the North, Wales, Scotland, NI, etc. will benefit from a Labour government, or how they will distribute the power and weather of London. Weeble has said, true, it comes down to policy and real aims to improve things. Apollo TD has actually made an interesting result for Staffordshire. Labour only have 4 Staffordshire County Council seats now. In 2013, they had 24. Tories now have 7 more than 2009, when the financial crisis was hammering Gordon Brown. Big realignment. Just a quick thing worth noting that before this election, there were 10 Labour councillors in Stafford, so they've lost 6. Wow. Blind Fury says, Labour never knocks on doors in Warsaw, only get Tory knock on door in Warsaw. Charlie Simmons says, also in terms of police and crime commissioner, Labour down 2, Conservatives up 4. Liberals says, will such a gambit work through other countries? Will be quite nervous at the prospect of various regions unilaterally getting to hold independence referendums on a whim. And then finally, the final quote comments, we have if the nationalist parties don't get a majority of the vote as well as seats, their argument support for a referendum would be undermined. And people basically just saying that the SNP are fascists and that Sadiq Khan will win on second preference. Which that last comment I will agree with, because I think it is abundantly clear now that Sadiq Khan is not going to win the first round, as he was speculated to. As for Alba, because I just want to dunk on them quickly. Alba,
just before you dunk, and I'm very much looking forward to your dunk, Mr. Tom Williams. Objects of Hate wants to join, but we're at max capacity at the moment. So because I'm taking a quick break anyway, I'm going to drop out and let him in, and then I'll come back in a little while. Okay.
All right then.
So I'm officially making you deputy captain, Tom Williams. Good luck.
My captain.
Thank you very much. I just just quickly, just to dunk on Albert. Albert have been very, very amusing to me this election, because they went into it really boisterous and basically going, we're the party that's going to secure a super majority for independence, and then they got about 1% of the vote in Scotland nationwide. And Alex Salmond, I think I didn't see the tweet fully, but because I just laughed at it. Wasn't it like he's not going to be leader of Alba? So the party has existed for 6 weeks and already the leader and founder is gone. That's amusing. So I guess he'll probably be going back to Russia today to get some more of Putin's gold.
So that's a curiosity,
Speaking of
Tom.
leadership,
Given
I just
how,
wanted to wait, can
Go on,
sure,
Cal.
go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in and say, speaking of leadership, the Tories reportedly have their knives out for Douglas Ross, and that they might end up having 3 leaders in 1 year.
Just like UKIP.
No
And
surprises there. Good evening. Oh, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, good afternoon, Object of Hate.
So just a quick question. Sorry, go on.
Well, I just want to bring Cameron in because Cameron said he wanted to ask a question. What was the question, Cameron?
Right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been following the results. So I wanted to ask, has Galway got close to being elected?
Absolutely not. In every constituency that is listed as regional results, All for Unity has done worse than Alba, except for in Dumfriesshire, where Galloway is himself standing. So, but even then, they only got 700 votes.
Yeah. So when there were polls, sorry, there was polls stating that you couldn't get in before the election.
So, anyway, I just want to do a quick question about London and Sadiq Khan. Given how badly he's done in this mayor election, you think he'll run for the 2024 mayor election? You think Labour will put someone else next time?
Well, funnily enough, a person in the comments called Leighton Royal has pretty much asked this, saying, surely after this, Khan can't run for another term. Bailey's campaign was shocking, and for it to be this close must tell Labour something about their whole approach in London as the country as a whole. Well, that's what I was speaking earlier about when I went on that little rant about Labour just bashing London and taking it for granted. If Khan has any sense, he won't run for a third term, because if he does, well, it will depend on the Tory candidate, but if they pick a socially liberal, fiscally centrist, and just generally quite strong Remainer candidate for the next election, I think the Tories will win. Probably not even by that much of a small margin. I think they might win by a comfortable margin, because Bailey was a complete shithouse when it came to campaigning, just being racist and really just idiotically dumb in every way possible. He was just a joke candidate with a major party backing him. And yet,
can I just interject there? I also feel that he may have been chosen because of the skin of the color of his skin, which really I don't like. But in London these days, maybe that's what you have to do. Remember Zach? Was it Zach Goldsmith who ran last time against him?
Yeah, Zach Goldsmith.
Zach Goldsmith didn't have a chance, apparently. Since Boris, I don't think basically in.
Well, I think
you have to be a minority to be able to get.
I think the reason
the ticket.
Zach Goldsmith, lost that election because I think they went to, hateful and anti-Muslim campaign thing, and I think that just put off voters there. I mean, I think they can elect white people. I mean, they've elected Ken Livingstone and they've elected Boris Johnson, so I don't think they have any issue with voting for white, London mayors and all that stuff. I think the biggest issue is just that, you either say something too outrageous or you take them for granted and then they will flip the other way. I think that's what's going on in London.
What I would say is going back to that Leighton and Royal comment, he talks about how this surely says something about Labour's approach to London and the country as a whole. I think what is interesting about these results is how much of a regional disparity there is between the results. In Wales, Labour have done very, very well, exceeded all expectations, and came very close to actually getting an overall majority in the Senate. And
West Midlands mayor's about to be announced.
Oh, good.
Good.
I'll update you.
Yeah, when the result comes in, interrupt me. But in the meantime, the Senate result for Labour was very good, and they will have a majority with the Liberal Democrat backing them up. But if you look at England, and in Scotland, they've done well largely because of unionist tactical voting. But if you look at England, they've just been completely mopped up all throughout the country. And now it seems that even in one of the last remaining Labour heartlands in England, of London, they're not doing as well as expected, even there, and even against a joke candidate. And
If I were
Two joke candidates. Remember the YouTuber?
oh yeah, the jokes, the pranksters as well.
don't forget Piers Corbyn and Peter Gammons.
Oh yeah,
As
there
well.
are a whole bunch of
Apparently,
joke candidates.
I'd say apparently Labour is struggling to get volunteers to campaign for them. It's what I've heard over social media. It's what I've been told face to face as well.
We heard that in Heart. We heard that in Heart Report as well.
Yeah. Not many people want to campaign, and in my area, people only campaign because like the candidate. Other than that, they really want to campaign. So it's been a struggle. I think Stormer is in it a lot of grassroots that did the footwork. And I think that's a lot of Labour's problem.
I think for me, the reason why Labour has done so badly in England and in London as well, for London, Khan has played a major role in that happening. He ran a shit campaign. His entire campaign was basically just a repeat of Starmer's, but without the nationalism and just the piss take of northern stereotypes. And it pretty much was all just vote for me, Sean Bailey's awful, vote for me, it's a two-horse
Hello?
race. Go on.
He's failed to win on the first round.
What, Street?
Yeah, he's received 49%.
Oh, that's bad. Well,
So
not bad, but...
No,
ooh.
he's going to win, but I'm quite surprised. In total, so this is the first round results, he received 299,318. That's up a lot from, the turnout's up. Last time he got 216,000, so he's up about 80,000 votes. Liam Byrne has received 244,000. Last time Labour got 210, so up 34,000. I think the Greens have meant it's gone to, he's not won the first round because the Greens have received 35,559. They got 24,000 last time. The Lib Dems are down by quite a bit. They got 30,000 last time. They got 21 this time. And the Reform Party have managed 13,568. So in total, Liam Byrne has won without decimals 49%. Sorry, no. Andy Street has won 49%. Liam Byrne has won 40%. The Greens have won 6%. The Lib Dems have won 4%. And Reform have won 2%. So the only way Labour would win, realistically, is if every Green and Lib Dem candidate had put him as his second place and not a single Reform had put the Tories. But he's going to win Andy Street. But in the end, that's probably not the best result for him that he was probably expecting, considering the council elections that have been near there and around there.
So Labour's done at least better in the mayoral elections they have in the locals, at least in that area, from what you're saying.
By the way, the other thing that's worth noting is the total turnout for Birmingham was 31%, which is...
Wow, that's so low.
I am being a bit unfair to Andy Street, even though he may have been expecting to do really, really well. Last time he got 42% on the first round, and this time he's had 49%. So he has gone up 7%, and Labour have virtually stayed exactly the same. Labour got 40.8% last time, and this time around they've received 40.5%. So basically, Labour retained all their votes from last time, but the Conservatives have basically wrapped up some votes from UKIP and the Lib Dems, it seems.
Oh, by the way, Charlie Simmons has commented that turnout was all of the West Midlands. So that wasn't just Birmingham, that was all of the West Midlands. Well, that's even worse then, if it's a 31% turnout overall for the West Midlands mayor.
So that means Labour vote didn't turn out?
Well, yeah, that's something that Blind Fury has mentioned with London. He says that the reason why it's so close is because there was low turnout. And it's the same with pretty much the West Midlands mayor as well. The turnout was low because Labour voters couldn't be bothered because of the terrible campaign and message.
Can I give you a few more reasons for why Khan isn't doing as well in London from the point of view of someone who's not a Labour voter? Something that you haven't, none of you have mentioned, I think, from one of the live streams I listened to, is Khan in particular cheerleaded Extinction Rebellion and BLM events. Didn't really lift a finger to get them cleared, etc. That has to be a factor in people's dissatisfaction in London. And also, he's imposed all of these low traffic areas, which means some people who have to use cars, it takes them like 3 to 4 times more time to get from point A to point B. either for their job or just to see their relatives or stuff like that, that also must lead to at least some dissatisfaction, and why he may not do as well this time around.
I'm not sure about the Extinction Rebellion one, but I could see the other ones affecting, because I don't think anyone really gives a toss about them anymore.
I think
Extinction Rebellion did lock down the centre of London in 19 and in 2020. And 2020, when everybody else was prevented from having political demonstrations, both BLM and Extinction Rebellion did do their stuff. So I think that is still a factor. It may not appear to people on your side, but people who are in the centre and people maybe on the centre right, that will be a factor in their dissatisfaction, I reckon. You may not agree, but there's a chance.
I think that goes from the whole sort of violation of COVID restrictions more than it is anything, because I think it just goes back with anything that sort of is a protest but violated COVID restrictions. So I do think that definitely played a role. I mean, with election results, win or lose, there's always multiple factors that go into why it happens. There's no one single reason why, but there's always dominant factors.
But when you have that added pressure, because you have, otherwise it's just the usual subjects, the NHS, are your streets clean, is normal life running normally, but you add that little extra ingredient, and you're not, that can knock you down a few pegs, and that can make the difference in an election. You're not working. You have to take all the components in instead of just the usual ones. I think these couple of years of really intention that's in London, that's increased the pressure more than usual against Khan.
The other thing I'd say as well is I think that Owen Jones on the BBC. I think the reason for me why Labour in England did so badly as a whole is mainly because of Keir Starmer's campaign. Keir Starmer's campaign was basically three things: beer, flags, and RNHS. That's pretty much what his campaign was. He thought, like, when you look at Hartlepool, I listened to people who were there who saw him campaign there, and the response you got from people was just, this is why Labour getting destroyed there was no surprise at all. He went up to Hartlepool and he went to a local pub and just bought a pint and drunk it in front of everybody as a publicity stunt, and then went to a local fish and chip shop afterwards and just ate fish and chips outside. It's like, you are literally you just view these people in the same way that people who go to a safari park view the animals, don't you?
Agreed.
Sorry to interrupt. I've got a little bit of I suppose, a shock news, really. In the Cambridge and Peterborough new mayoral election, the Lib Dems, who were very, very expecting to have a good go at taking this, have actually come third and actually narrowly come behind Labour. Now, I know that might not mean much, but what I've been reading here is that the Lib Dems, who have voted first preference, basically didn't vote a second preference because they were so expecting to come second. So there's a chance the Conservatives may take this mayoralty because the Lib Dems haven't voted Labour second preference because they were expecting to come second and get Labour second preferences.
Stupid for the Lib Dems and not doing a second preference. You should always do a second preference.
Yeah, it's remarkable. This was their only target mayoralty, and they have the first round result was the Conservatives on 94,000. I'll round up. The Labour Party on 76, and the Lib Dems on 62,000. 14,000 behind Labour, and if any reading on this election going up to it, that was not it was not expected Labour would come second, but they would push the Lib Dems to win with second preferences. I just really hope that Liberal Democrat voters have at least put Labour second preference, enough of them, because if they haven't, well, then they're getting a Tory mayor.
Well, this is the thing that let me just make sure it was him who said this. Lee Hallam said it. Would it be unfair to say the Lib Dems are doing really badly? No, I wouldn't actually say it is. I would say that while the Lib Dems are not doing as badly as Labour, I would say that taking it into account, they are doing pretty badly, these election results. So far, the Lib Dems are on a net loss of 21 councillors, which for a party which is known for its very strong localism is actually quite bad, very bad indeed. And
Well,
that
Can I
result for
jump
the
in?
Cambridgeshire mayoralty is kind of another indication of that, to be honest.
I wonder, because
Can
I
I
know
jump
that
in
the
on
Lib
this?
Dems fine due to coalition for the council that benefited Labour, but I'm wondering if the only reason the Lib Dems recovered, particularly in the last 2 or 3 years, was because of the whole bollocks to Brexit, we want to remain campaign, driving Remainers to vote. But now that Brexit is done with, I see people are just thinking there's no reason to vote for the Lib Dems.
Can I jump
I'd
in
agree
with
on that,
the
but I have a
institutions of
further
Lib
reason.
Dems?
I have a further reason. I just think the Lib Dem voter, to me, looks like the voter who could vote Green very easily, and the Greens are up, and the Lib Dems are down. I think they may be able to transfer a vote to the Greens.
Okay.
Excuse me, can I just jump in with the situation with the Lib Dems in Scotland?
Go ahead.
Now, look, they've done well in the sense that they held all the constituencies that they won in 2016. However, an important thing that seems to be the case is that a lot of, I don't want to say tactical voting, but certainly sort of the concentration of unionist second votes in either Conservative or Labour, depending on the region, has meant the Lib Dems could miss out on getting list seats, and actually might end up being, despite doing reasonably well, perhaps slightly increasing their vote share in some regions, will actually lose seats because of the electoral system and because of just a lack of firm support for them. There's the Lib Dems, for example, in the Highlands and Islands got 13,000 in one constituency, but only
Can I say,
7,000
just to
in the
interrupt
list.
you, Callum, there's somebody in the background, I think it's John, who has enormous feedback coming from his...
Okay, I'll mute myself.
There we go. Go on, Callum, now.
Oh, I was just going to add that, in Caithness, Sutherland and Ross in the Highlands, the very good Liberal Democrat candidate significantly increased their vote share, didn't unseat the SNP, but reduced their majority quite significantly. But in the same constituency, in the list vote, it's quite clear that their vote, although it went up, it split off into other parties a bit. The Lib Dems, for example, only got 7,818, down from their 13,000 in the constituency, and the Tories went from 5,000 in the constituency up to 7,900, slightly ahead of the Lib Dems in the list. So part of me thinks that although the Lib Dems might perform strongly in particular places, their overall vote share will be spread too thinly or too unevenly to actually get them more seats. And maybe their localism is not working out for
Am I
them.
able to share an interesting England Council result?
Sure.
The fact that I'm having to say that Labour have just held this shows how bad the night is. Labour have just held Rotherham Council by the skin of their teeth.
Wow, really?
Yes, the Conservatives before today, the Conservatives had 0 councillors in Rotherham. They now have 20. They have gained 20 councillors. Labour have lost 11, and the Lib Dems have gained 2. So in total, there are 20 Conservatives, 3 Lib Dems, and 5 independents, which is 28, and there are 32 Labour. So Labour have held it by only a majority of 4. prior
So,
to
out of
this,
curiosity, did they gain the Conservatives also gain for independence as well as
yeah,
Labour and Lib Dems?
funnily enough, Labour actually gained 2 independent. So the Conservatives mainly gained from Labour, but they did gain the odd 2 independent candidates. And Labour actually did it. It was a bit. I'm just going into results here. The independents actually quite mixed. Some Labour gains here, some Lib Dem gains for the independents, and some Conservative gains.
Can I just make a point about this? Because I know the independents were ex-Brexit Party. The left Brexit Party went independent after the 29 general election. The independents were UKIP before as well. I'll just make that point, and that's why the independents did quite poorly.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I finished. That's it. I'll add that to it. But Rotherham, that's a long time coming. Labour, the council has been quite woeful over years, and it's not very popular.
I think that there are going to be other councils like Rotherham that are going to start having that happen to them moving forward. I think Sandwell is another council where this is going to happen. Like Sandwell was a council that used to be 100% Labour about couple years ago, and they've now got 9 Tories on the council. And local activists in Sandwell say that in about 10 years' time, this council will be no overall control unless something changes drastically in the leadership of the council and the National Party.
I mean, in the mayoralty in West Midlands, Byrne only won it by 4,000 votes, and that's you know. Yeah, in Sandwell Council, in Sandwell, Labour got 33,000 and Andy Street got 28,000.
I think the Midlands is slowly becoming a place where Labour are about as popular there as Thatcher and the Conservative brand was in the 1990s. It's just becoming a party which just everybody hates with a passion there now. And they just keep losing and losing electoral elections, no matter what.
Yeah, you could argue that one half of the Labour coalition has left a tent now.
Also, it's more than that.
I had an interesting conversation with someone at Salford Council last night that a winning coalition for Labour in an election doesn't seem to exist, because it seems that the 2 parts of their party, the middle class, the idea of middle class liberal voters and working class working class former, it seems like they are former Labour voters. There isn't a policy. Well, I mean, I hope there would be, but from how bad it is, there may not be a platform that Labour can put forward that may be able to win over both of them to win an election.
Tory control of the UK incoming.
Well, yeah, I mean, but it just shows the divergence of the different regions, because Wales is overwhelmingly left of centre. Scotland is overwhelmingly left of centre. Northern Ireland, is a different battleground, but again, it's still not in any way. I mean, it's just Northern Ireland, and then you've got pockets of England and London that are left of centre, and then you've got the rest of England that's seemingly voting to the right. I know, obviously, many of that might be due to cultural reasons more than economic, but it just shows how. It's just remarkable how divided the areas of the UK are, and that's why I think if this is the long-term future, there's no way the UK will stay together. There's no way.
Excuse me, can I just jump in? I'm going to get going, and I just wanted to add that I think the idea of Scotland being an overwhelmingly left of centre country in general, although probably true, Scotland sits to the left of many countries. I think it's always overstated. Scotland is no progressive oasis. It's actually quite an insular country, and I mean the success of the SNP often, I think, shows that Scotland does can have a reasonably centre-right government, and everyone assumes that we're in a kind of left-wing paradise. Because I mean, the way that the SNP have been running the economy has been quite conservative, fiscally speaking.
Well, that's a really interesting interpretation. I would say I still think it is deservedly that Scotland is to the left of the rest of of England itself. I think, is that fair to
Outside
say?
of London, yeah.
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 Yeah, but England is right of centre, so
Yeah.
it's not difficult.
No.
Callum, can I ask you one question before you leave, please? I'd like to know, Alba was set up to to be able to win the regional lists, or at least get a few extra MSPs for the independence movement. They appear to have failed that, but have they blocked enough? Have they done enough of their job to prevent the unionists from getting significant regional seats?
Oh, we have no idea yet, unfortunately. Because
Yeah,
none of the regional results have actually come out yet. The first should be Highlands and Islands, and the only information we have for that at the moment is that the Tories are likely to take a seat from Labour there.
Okay.
Right. It's definitely not clear, but Alba has totally underperformed, completely failed miserably, and it remains to be seen how that will actually affect the regional results. But it doesn't look as if it's done really anything. The only thing it could have done is maybe changed who gets the 7th seat in each region, but that we won't know that until the actual result comes out. Just to say, the SNP have held Glasgow Cathcart, although I do not know what the precise results are there. But I imagine there'll have been a strong SNP hold to Labour in second. I'll just go in a moment, but I can give that result when it's through. When it eventually does come through, because it's not showing up on the BBC. Why does the BBC take so long with these things?
While you do that, I'll just read out a couple of comments here. Basically, there's a discussion about whether the Lib Dems merging with Labour and whether they should or not, and if they do, will that make Labour's problem worse or better? And it seems the consensus is that it'll make the situation worse because the voter coalitions just won't get along. And Captain Swiss has said the growing rift in our society along cultural lines is split right down the middle of Labour's old voter coalition, and to some degree they're bleeding out support both ends of that divide. And then it said BBC saying Rotherham had never had Conservative councillors before this, and well, they didn't. As for the picture, update on the local results, they are as follow for England. The Tories have a net gain of 10 councils and 215 councillors. Labour have had a net loss of 45 councils and 247 councillors. Liberal Democrats have had no change in councils and lost 21 councillors. The Greens, interestingly enough, have had an increase of 61 councillors, and then the rest of it is just a breakdown of minor parties. The only one really worth noting here is UKIP, which had no councillors and has lost all of their councillors, which is 43. So,
sorry, just some breaking news from Scotland. Oh, I think
yes. I was going to say that the Glasgow Cathcart results a huge SNP majority, about 10,000, but the SNP have failed to take Galloway and West Dumfries, and the Tories have increased their majority there. Or if they haven't increased it, then I'm not sure yet. But it does appear that was one of the seats that the SNP were hoping to gain. And after gaining Ayr yesterday, they were hopeful for that. But I think it's a rallying unionist vote. Labour and the Liberal Democrats combined got less than 3,000 votes.
Does that kill
it's less than 4,000 votes?
Majority? Does that
well, we really don't know yet. And the strong performance of them in the regional list in those constituencies that have released the results, it could mean the SNP pick up list seats that we didn't think they were going to get.
Okay.
But with having gained 2 seats in the south, it's possible that the SNP will lose a regional seat. So the sort of the net situation there would be only gaining 1 overall.
Somebody has said here about your comments with the SNP being to the centre right on the economy. They've said, Sky Echo 7 said, SNP haven't had really any much room to implement left of centre policies until 2017, when they received some tax powers because the Scottish revenue returns via the Barnett formula have been savagely cut since 2010.
Yeah. I'm not trying to say that it's necessarily the SNP's fault that they're that this is precisely how they've been ruling for the last 14 years, or even the last sort of 10 years. I do think that the SNP could do more on the left, economically, especially with those tax raising powers, but they have been hesitant to use them. We'll have to wait and see. Kate Forbes, the current finance secretary, although probably still a social democrat, is maybe on the more right-leaning end within the SNP's cohort, certainly within the cabinet. So, we'll have to wait and see how the SNP run things, and if they don't win a majority, they will have to rely on the Greens, and the Greens will extract more economically left policies from them. And they're probably also going to be working with Labour, not necessarily just to secure votes, but in order to in general keep the Parliament less divided and to freeze the Tories out. Because the less the Tories can appear to extract from the government, and the more isolated they look politically, that's better for all parties.
Right. John Curtis says in order to get a majority for the SNP, they now need the Aberdeen seats.
And that one's come down to a wire, and there's been multiple recounts.
Aberdeen West,
so
is that
we don't
Aberdeen
know.
West?
Aberdeenshire West, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
Aberdeenshire West.
a Tory hold. That was a Tory gain, I think, in the last election, or a Tory hold. It was only
sorry,
about
I'm getting mixed
900
up.
votes last
Yeah.
time. And Aberdeenshire West could be an SNP gain or a Tory hold, and it will probably be within a couple of hundred votes, if that. It's really close, and everyone's focusing on it, and there's a lot of pressure on it to declare, but I don't think it's to declare until about 5. Because of how close it is.
Do you think the Greens are going to get more than 10 seats?
It's possible, but it's looking slightly less likely than it did before the election. The actual results do show that the Greens haven't picked up as many seats.
Okay.
So as many votes as they were hoping, but we haven't got all the results in yet.
So it looks like for a while there was talk of the Indian parties in Holyrood getting on the verge of 80 seats, and it looks like now they might not even get 70 probably just over 70 seats.
I definitely think they'll get more than 70.
Okay, yeah, right.
If the SNP get 64 or 65 seats and the Greens get between 8 and 10 seats, then they'll definitely be more than 70. But yeah, they're getting the quote-unquote supermajority, which was a thing that Alex Salmon just made up.
Yeah. I know the worst are really. It just seems. I suppose this is the more. Polling is just polling, I suppose. But it's no matter what, though. Even though if they don't, let's say they do fail to get a majority in 2011 when they got 69 seats and the Greens got 2, that was 71 seats in support of India, and it looks like it will be. They should promote that because it will be more this time. So there are going to be more. There are going to be more MSPs, the most ever MSPs in Scottish Parliament that support an India referendum. Probably, I believe that's probably fair to say.
Yeah, because in 2011 it was 71 or maybe 72 for independence. In 2016, you're right. It was It was 70, I think.
Labour
have now officially 63 or 64.
Yeah, Labour have officially now lost over 250 councillors.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that. It's. That is. Oh wow. There was people saying that. That's like it's. People were saying that even if Labour had gained 250 councillors in a time of where they are, basically, it would just be all right. And the fact that they've lost 250 councillors, it's. I just wow. There's just been a result here in St Helens where the Greens have gained off Labour and gone up 50% in their vote share. Also, there's just an interesting nitbit. There's been one ward where there's been a tie in the entire country this time around. It was decided on a coin toss. So that's how they do it. I found that out yesterday, that if there is a tie in a council seat, then it's decided by a coin toss, and it was a tie between Labour and the Liberal Democrats, and the Labour candidate won the coin toss.
One more thing is that the result in Clydesdale in South Lanarkshire is imminent as well, but they're delayed because the Conservative candidate is paraplegic and needs lifted up onto the stage because they didn't have a ramp.
Just a bit of a question about London.
I was going to say quickly with the council things, it's quite amazing because the usual lot were basically saying, "Oh, Jez Bowler's performance 4 years ago was woeful, and he should have done better." Well, the difference is back then Jez Bowler was behind the Tories by 20 points. If anybody else was in charge, 20 points. And basically, the situation is this good old forensic Keir is behind. Was the last polls that came out showed that there was a 1 point difference between Labour and the Tories. So about 1 point difference between Labour and Tories, and yet Sir Keir is getting smashed to pieces in England. I think for me, what this shows is we've returned to the shy Tory effect.
Yeah.
I think that Corbyn got rid of the shy Tory effect because he was so hated. People came out and were like, "Yeah, I hate that commie cunt." But now that he's gone, people can't really sort of be openly visceral in their hatred for Labour anymore. So they just go back to being shy Tories. And I think that's what it is, because I do not believe for a second, I know it's local results, I do not believe for a second that they are 1 point behind the Tories when this is the absolute state of their local election results.
Yeah, there's no way. What? There's no. I mean, it could be even the polls showing them 10 points behind are actually general. I just don't. I just think if they're. I mean, the idea Starmer said Labour. It's funny. It said Labour's made progress, but the voters don't see it yet. Well, then you haven't made progress then. You know, he actually said I think it was I think Jim McMahon who actually said nearly those exact words. I just. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to mention Swiss says in the private chat that he's back.
Oh, brilliant!
Welcome back, Swiss.
Result is imminent in Greater Manchester as well. So whenever that's done, I'll reveal. I mean, I've got a source there who said Burnham's going to win 70%. So there you go.
Excellent.
And just to say that Clyde SNP have held Clydesdale.
The SNP, the Tories are also confident they'll win Aberdeenshire West as well, but that's just what they say.
And Clydesdale, there was a decline in the SNP vote, but a jump in the Tory vote. I'm not quite sure where it came from. It must have come from another candidate not standing.
Can I say something about Starmer? Did Starmer actually say that? About Labour making progress, but the voters haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, he said that, and not
Yeah,
only
he said that.
How condescending is that?
Not only did he say that, but good old Wes Streeting said it, Jim McMahon said it, and Steve Reed said it as well.
What? Oh, they're insane. That's not the worst thing to say.
It's a comedy parody. Some of their responses out from to this, it's actually hilarious. It's honestly like Starmer there's an interview that Starmer did that if anyone's not watched it, it's comedy gold, where he's all the stereotypes about him being vague and having no vision are all played out. He basically says someone described it as, if you've got an idea, you've got the subtitle and then you've got the detail below. He just says the subtitles.
Yeah.
Is it like a really tight teleprompter? Or is Joe Biden saying to say?
Do you want to know the result in Dudley in West Midlands? I think someone said they were interested in that.
Yeah, what was the result?
So just last time, just to give you some. Last time around, Andy Street got 32,000. This time he got 52,000. And the Labour candidate last time got 17,000, and this time he got 20,000. So he's absolutely smashed it there, Street in Dudley. I mean that from my count. I mean, if you add up all the other votes, including Labour, that's about 51,000 compared to 28,000. So that's Conservatives there winning over 50% of the vote in Dudley.
I thought I'd just finish the saying. What
Yeah,
Stormer said reminded me of the Remain campaign. That's what it is. When people at the top of that campaign said that people were too stupid.
By the way, to address,
Just start over again.
by the way, before I address that, I'll just read out a couple of comments. Leighton Royal said, "Don't get me wrong, this result is quite amusing, and hopefully get Labour to change for the better. But what does this mean for the future? No credible opposition is never a good idea." Apollo DTD has said that there's some controversy about the Durham PCC count, first round being recounted after several thousand Conservative votes were belatedly found to have been misallocated to the Lib Dems.
Ooh.
Those tricky Lib Dems.
Rigged. Votes rigged. Get the
Yeah.
guns.
They tried to fortify it there.
Yeah, and basically that was pretty much it. Somebody said, Lee Hallam said that Layla Moran is feeling confident. I'm not sure what she's feeling confident about, but she's feeling confident.
Wow, that's nice.
But yeah, I mean, on the Remain campaign, yeah, it is. And I think that for me, it is just the perfect embodiment that Labour is not going to change after these election results. They've got smashed to pieces in England, and it's only going to get worse because, well, how many councils are left to declare? Oh, about
33.
33 more councils. So that's 33 more councils for Labour to lose seats. I wonder if they'll have. I wonder what the total losses will be. 300?
256 now they've lost, and they've actually lost 4 councils, like actual councils, which is horrendous. But it's currently at 256. So I would say there's a chance that it could get to 300.
How many councils have we had so far?
We've had 110, and we've got 33 left.
I'm going to go with 307.
I'm going 294.
310.
I wouldn't be surprised if it got into 300, which, by the way, to put things in perspective, is only... Well, Jez Bowler in 2017 got a minus of like 450 councils, so they've only done just slightly better than when Jez Bowler was 25 points behind, so good job, Keir.
Yeah, in 26...
If I may, just it's been coming up in the side chat a few times. People talking about, well, if this is the state of Labour, you know, you need a credible opposition, you need people with a vision. Who's going to come along? What would it be? If you guys were Keir Starmer, perish the thought.
I'd resign. Sorry.
Okay, let me try again. If you guys are the Labour leader to replace Keir Starmer, what would you be trying to do differently? Is there a difference in policy area or vision or demographic?
I'd probably emphasize the things that worked with the 2017 manifesto, because it is one of the manifestos that had a net gain of seats and vote share in 20 years. So I do what's popular there. Try to emphasize more on local, more on local areas and all that stuff. Get more popular local candidates, both for local elections and the national ones. Try to make the party more, I guess, a bit more appealing to just communities and all that stuff. Try to keep as much of the social liberal stuff I can, but maybe not overemphasize it where it doesn't alienate, the more moderate or socially conservative people, and just try to focus more on the economics and public transport and stuff. And in terms of union, I try to offer more on federalisation, an alternative to the independence movements that are sprouting in Wales, Scotland, and I guess Northern Ireland.
You've got my vote.
I quite like that to mini manifesto. Yes, go ahead.
I think what I would do personally is for this locals campaign. What I would have done is instead of make it a campaign of beer, flags, and RNHS, what I would have actually done is made it about radical thing, local issues, and I would have emphasised local Labour successes like Preston and Nottingham City Council, and use them as proof of what a Labour government at the local level can do for you and your community, rather than just basically saying that the working class are all these people that just go around drinking pints, eating fish and chips while wearing cloth caps, which is basically what Starmer did. Oh, and also talk about how we need to do RNHS some good, even though RNHS isn't decided by any local council whatsoever. And I would also just do the basic thing of articulating a vision and having some policies rather than empty, meaningless rhetoric like, we've got a mountain to climb, we're going to change, we're wishing
Yeah.
to voters.
We're listening. We're listening.
Yeah, I listen
Um,
to, yeah.
I give them one thing to do. I get him, if he wants party discipline, he has to discipline the party to ignore the Twitter mob. The Twitter mob is not on your side. The Twitter mob is there to pull you in the wrong direction. He needs to move. Well, he needs to find policies that will move Labour culturally a bit closer to the centre. With that, he can get people back. But you risk splitting the party. But he already wants to get rid of that bit of the party. So we need to move culturally closer to the center, and basically tell everybody to stay off Twitter, stay away from that, because it doesn't do any good at all. But I know that's too much. That's too much to ask.
Yeah.
Can I say I actually agree on what we said, but I think Labour needs to focus on local issues instead of Starmer is a technocrat. It's too much of one. And a lot of things he said during the campaign had nothing to do with local issues. Like the NHS nurse pay rise, even though that Labour's policy is terrible on it, it's all like 0.5% more than the Tories. Let's talk about that. Now, what does that have to do with local issues?
Oh, by the way, I just want to say there's actually.
Go on.
No, I was just going to say quickly. It turns out Starmer has actually proved me wrong, and he is going to learn from the election result.
You're joking.
Here's how he's going to do it. Apparently, according to Apollo TD, Labour HQ and Starmer have already handpicked the Labour candidate for the Batley and Spen by-election.
Fantastic.
They don't live in Batley and Spen.
Oh.
Netherlands. What?
Wait! I'm sorry. Did I just miss that? Have they just handpicked? They're not going through the selection process again.
No,
like
that's
they
democracy.
They're going to handpick a candidate that doesn't live in the local area, because, as we know, that was the winning formula for Hartlepool, wasn't it?
I'm so pleased that Keir Starmer's listening. I'm so pleased that he's
brilliant.
climbing the mountain already, getting off to such a good start.
I bet it's a Remainer. I bet you it's a Remainer.
I think 90% of Labour members are. I'm just trying to give you an example. Buses. No one talks about buses. Andy Burnham. I think he bought. Yeah, I think he nationalised them or Porsches.
We're all communists up here.
Yeah, but I think that's proving very popular, and everyone complains about buses. So let's talk about local issues. No one talks about these little issues that get pushed aside by big politicians. I think that's what Labour needs to go at. And I will say that the party needs to be democratised, and it needs to give power to members to choose candidates, and that's part of the problem with Labour. It's too centralised, too democratic, too bureaucratic. It needs to be a proper movement.
Before I share my opinion, if that's okay, I've just got an update on London. Currently, 41% turnout, and 7 of the 14 areas have been counted. Sadiq Khan is on 487,000. Sean Bailey is on 462,000. So very close. The Greens are on 100,000. The Lib Dems are on 46,000. The independent Nico Olimalana, who is basically a YouTube candidate who, if you follow his story, it's remarkable, is actually on 25,000. And the retained... But yeah, I just can't actually believe he's polled 25,000 votes, and there's not even half. This is only half of the areas have come in yet. And Lawrence Fox is actually Lawrence Fox is on 24,000 and behind Nico.
Wait!
That's terrible.
Lawrence Fox is Lawrence Fox losing to the YouTube guy?
Yeah,
He is.
It's a neck
I
and
believe
neck
that was
race.
the YouTube guy's goal, to beat Lawrence Fox, right?
Yeah, it's within
prank,
400 votes. It's within 400 votes, so it's neck and neck. They've been going up and down for most of the night. But off the funny bit, because even though it is funny, Labour are on 39% and the Conservatives are on 37%. Now, there are some the areas that haven't declared are quite Labour, so there's no way Bailey's going to win. That's not going to happen. But he currently from these areas. Labour is down 4%. Conservatives are up 1%. The Greens are up 2%. The Lib Dems are down 1%, and the Independents are up 2%. So the Conservatives are actually doing. Bailey isn't doing as good as like people are saying. You know, like there's this talk of him doing a lot better than people say. Obviously, because we all thought he did crap, but he isn't like he's only doing a bit better. Khan is mainly losing out to the Greens and Independents, and which obviously then shows about Labour debatably taking their votes for granted there, because I just think it just shows that. I mean, the Greens at the moment may actually end up getting 200,000 votes, because the areas that are left to declare not only are very Labour, but Greens are expected to do well there. I mean, that would be phenomenal. It's going to be very interesting the final results in London, but it's not. It shows London is still on the left. I mean, clearly, but it shows that Labour may have to get their the gears, I don't know what they say, basically start taking note of what's going on down there and not just think it's becoming a safe Labour heartland.
Yeah, especially
Now,
in London. I call London. In London,
Mhm.
I call the Green vote the luxury vote. You have the luxury that you think that your mayor's going to get re-elected anyway, so you can afford to vote for something else, and that may cost him a little bit. And can I just one last thing? I have another Labour policy for you. It's one that makes sense for the public, but doesn't make sense for the activists. They need to go against the teachers' union on not reopening the schools. They need to tell the teachers that they have to go back. They should have gone back. I can tell you, I live in Switzerland. In Switzerland, we only closed the schools for 6 weeks. Schools have been operating normally ever since. And if we can do it, you could do it as well. So
I'm not entirely confident that we can, to be honest.
Well,
but it would be extremely popular with the public, though. If your Labour Council is making your schools reopen, that will help you. It's a one-off thing. They could have done it this time, but they didn't. But it would. I know it goes completely against the grain, but it would be a very popular policy.
I'll be honest. I do think Starmer and the Labour leadership were quite in that not in the first wave, which you may be talking about, but from after the first wave, that was something that Starmer and the leadership were quite pro. They were saying they were actually going against the unions quite often, and the teaching unions will tell you that. So I do think that unless you mean at the beginning, I don't think that can be fair to say for the.
Well, did you hear about it in the campaign though?
I mean, the thing that is worth noting is that the public sector has voted against Labour by quite a lot in this election. Like in the previous election in 2019, Labour won about 86% of healthcare workers. They only won 32% of them. The Tories actually won healthcare workers.
Just while we're on the topic of Labour, guys, I want to read out. I'd asked the people in the chat, what about you as Labour supporters or opponents? What do they need to do to improve? So just while we're on this topic, I want to read a few of them out. Pad 2 says Labour can't deal with the little issues since they don't have the funds from central government. Taper E says that Labour need a new leader like Burnham. They need to adopt popular policies, ridiculed before but adopted by Tories, being economically radical Scandinavian but culturally more centre-right. Sky Echo says, stop standing candidates that stand as personal career moves that have zero life experience. A few more here. Jack Druitt says, release a statement that they are against a second referendum. They were wrong about Brexit, etc. then once they've put that to bed, listen to workers more. Bittersweet says Starmer needs to stop spewing vapid, meaningless horseshit and start talking about what the fuck they're planning to do.
Fantastic.
I'm sick of him talking about beliefs and values. No one believes he has any. And Apollo TD says, one thing I learned on the doorstep canvassing for the Tories is that many former Labour Brexit voters are annoyed that Labour have defended traveller communities defacing green spaces. And I think that's a couple more here. Leighton Royal, Labour needs to pledge for federalisation, some form of PR. They need a leader with charisma, state there will not be another EU referendum, and engage more with the working class. And one thing I'll just say, just because it's kind of occurred to me, really, I think part of the issue with Starmer and him not really outlining a vision, a clear-cut idea of what it is that he wants to do, other than, tackle pandemic, tackle inequality, which is easy enough for a Labour opposition to say. It is this former voter coalition of theirs that's split, isn't it? And we keep coming back to this time and time again. You're sort of whether it's your university graduates or your middle class voters or your metropolitan area people, and then your old traditional left Labour working class, which have drifted over to the Tories via UKIP and the Brexit Party lately. Perhaps some of the trouble is that Starmer's not clearly going for a defined vision, either because he doesn't think he's got one that can unite the two sides, or that if the choice is then to pick one side or the other, he knows it will alienate the others, either the left Corbynite types over to the Greens, or the Lib Dems, well, evidently not the Lib Dems, but over to the Greens, and the other lot over to the Conservatives. So I think that's part of the trouble. Like, we keep saying to him, outline a vision for us, but does a vision currently exist that can unite that former voter coalition?
Yeah.
Implicitly, after Brexit, two sides really hate each other.
Could you say that again, please? I didn't hear that properly.
Hang on a second. I'm out of train station.
We're getting a key seat in Scotland in the next 5 minutes as well. The Aberdeen seat that the SNP are hoping to gain, that could determine whether they end up getting a majority or not. So.
I think after Brexit and the whole, the socially conservative lot thinking that the Labour left is all city woke-ish, and left wingers think all the socially conservatives are a bunch of racist gammons. I'm not entirely sure they will ever truly unite behind each other, because they kind of both hate each other just as equally.
Justin, rugby's been held by the Conservatives for the English Council.
Is football still in Labour's hand? No, sorry, I can't make that joke. Just something interesting that I'm just suggesting that. Oh no, sorry, I don't know what I was going with that. Then forget about what I'm saying.
No worries. I'll do a few more comments then. Bittersweet. The trouble is literally everything Starmer says when he's given a platform to set out a vision. I've lost the comment there. When he gets a platform to set out a vision, it's just utterly vague word salad dressed up in virtue signalling, and it's repellent even to past voters. Have2 says he cannot promise the moon and not deliver on it since the economy is dying under inflation. Sky Echo says perhaps it's time Labour put away their champagne glasses, rolled up their sleeves, and did some hard graft necessary at grassroots level rather than relying on polls and think tanks. Leighton Royal says, I think the trouble is that Starmer really doesn't know what vision he has. He's really underestimated the position he is in and now doesn't want to give up on it despite not knowing what he's doing.
I think that what Starmer needs to do is he needs to get massive wallpaper that's covered in Union Jacks from John Lewis. And he needs to do all of his speeches from his room that's covered in that wallpaper, wearing a suit that looks like the British Union Jack. And whilst he does it, he has a massive pint of lager that he just takes sips from the whole time during his speech. But that'll win over the northern working class in it.
One last quick comment. Sorry, just one last quick comment I want to read. Nick Yard says Labour cannot do anything until they figure out who they are catering for. It's that simple.
That's true, to be fair.
I do wonder if perhaps the best chance of Labour ever getting back into government again is if they do at least around, let's see, 270 80s, and the Lib Dems get at least 30 or 40 seats again, and they agree to form some sort of minority government. But as we can see, the Lib Dems aren't exactly doing well either.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because if they had to work with the SNP, they'd demand an independence referendum. That's going to be a bit complicated for the union vote. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, breaking news. According to Jennifer Williams from the MEN, Andy Burnham has won 76% of the vote on the first round.
Andy Burnham for next Labour leader. Sorry.
That is, I'll be honest, that is fucking
76%.
unbelievable. 76%. That is up from 63% last time. That is basically she's just been given the provisional results and she's just done the maths there. That's that's what we've been hearing. It's going to be massive, but just reading that, if that's the case, that is absolutely resounding. And the thing I was just about to mention before obviously we went was that a lot of Labour figures, not just in Manchester, but who have known Andy Burnham before and been sceptical of criticism in the past, are speaking very positively of him. So they're like now. I just think that. I mean, the thing with Andy Burnham. I mean, I would vote for Andy Burnham to be Labour leader in a heartbeat if that does come to be. But it's going to be a very interesting path for him to end up doing it, because there's all this talk. But one, he's got to be an MP. And the fact is that if Starmer doesn't resign, then the most likely chance for Andy Burnham becoming Labour leader is if we do have another election in 2023. I know off the record that there's a seat in Salford Council called Blakely and Broughton. The MP there called Graham Stringer is going to be retiring, and Andy's got there's some suggestions that he will be standing in that seat in the next election. And if Labour then lose that and Keir resigns and Andy gets back into Parliament, well, then he'll run. And I think if his popularity is anything like it is now, he'd win it by a country mile.
I just want to say, if James Fielding is watching the stream, you are firmly in the mud, mate.
He's going to be crying like crazy.
I wanted to ask you guys, when is the next UK, the fairly large-scale election after this one?
There's local elections this time next year, but that's really it.
Okay, so Starmer's got till next year to get it fixed, then, if you can.
I think Aberdeen's about to be is it? No, never mind. The thing that could kill Starmer is the by-election at Tracy Braben's seat, because she's going to win. She's going to win the mayoralty, so she's going to resign that seat, and she's got a majority of about 3,000. It's a Leave majority seat. If he loses that as well, all these Labour MPs who have got about a 3,000 to 6,000 majority, and there are a lot of them, are going to be like, well, hang on, we're all going to lose our seats. So if he does lose, I think that could either make him resign or kill him, basically. He'll be forced out. And I don't know if I'd really want that. And I don't really know what's going to happen. But this year, I'll tell you what, conference this year, if it's held in person, is going to be interesting. It's going to be fun.
I mean, it's possible that it could happen because Ian Duncan Smith was kicked out of the Tory leadership after 2 terrible local election results. So it very well could happen.
SNP sources have privately conceded Aberdeen West, according to Lewis Goodall on the Aberdeenshire West, which, according to the BBC, ends the chance of an SNP majority. But I think that's on the assumption that the list vote isn't going to be really good for the SNP, like some people think it could be. So it's still up in the air. It's up in the air, Scotland. But yeah.
Apparently, if Starmer does resign, it would be the first time since 1935 that a Labour leader resigns without having gone through a national election, a parliamentary election.
Yeah, that's the thing. Labour doesn't really have a history of either deposing its leaders or leaders going before. So that's why it would be. I'll be honest. If he went now, it couldn't be Burnham. So I don't really know. I don't know who I'd think would win it. Could be a number of people, to be honest.
I think Lisa Nandy is probably the most likely to take over because she's built up quite a profile since becoming Shadow Foreign Sec.
Yeah.
And she's
And Labour would
close to
finally have
Burnham.
a female leader. That would be something, wouldn't it?
She's also quite close to Andy Burnham, both as a friend and politically, so that could help her as well.
It could be like someone like West Streeton.
Oh, fucking
I can see it.
Oh God, no.
It also depends what.
We'll make Starmer look like Tony Blair if it's Wes Streeton.
Talking of Tony Blair, he seems to be pulling strings in the background.
Oh,
I'd be if I know
God,
I know
no.
all of you hate Tony Blair and Blairites. But the Blairites might be trying to do pull something over next year. I'd be keep my eyes out for that.
Well, I don't know who's going to vote. I don't know what members are going to vote for them. But
I don't know either, but there are other powers at work as well. So.
yeah, well, about the idea of changing the way the leadership election works again, which is if that, I mean, I think that could be the final nail in the coffin if they try and lead it away from the members again. But
yeah, that would be.
Yeah, I know.
Letting just a parliamentary party decide, that would be very, very difficult to explain.
Some news on here on Burnham. He is expected to win. I mean, in Manchester itself, in Greater Manchester, he has won. This is according to someone there now. In Manchester itself, he's received 87,000 votes, and the Tories received 8,000. So he's won 80% of the vote in Manchester itself, and it looks to be 70 according to this, between 74 and 77% in total in Greater Manchester. And he may actually do what he nearly did last time and win all 215 wards. Last time he won 211 out of the 215. So it's going to. I mean, he's going to have the most successful result in the entire. I mean, it seems on percentage wise anywhere in the country on the mayoralties, and also, wow, that's for now. Also, by the way, Andy Burnham's backed proportional representation, so he would back it. So
no surprises there. Staffordshire's just been held by the Conservatives, and they increased their majority. They have 57 seats. Labour has lost 6 seats. They're down to 4, and there's one other. So it's all going well. Wow.
Yeah,
So,
that's just the continuation of Labour getting smashed to pieces in the Midlands.
well, the UKIP vote has come home to roost for the Conservatives, hasn't it? UKIP, Brexit Reform Party.
Basically, all the right-wing parties have just voted Tory. That's pretty much how it's gone.
Yeah, it seems to. I mean, now Farage is out of the picture. They basically don't have a chance. So.
Yeah, I mean, with Farage basically going onto that website where you just pay people to say something and saying things like Big Chungus and Among Us and all that idiotic
I
stuff.
know.
It's not surprising, to be honest.
He still has his YouTube channel, by the way, where he mostly posts about illegal immigration via boats landing on the southern coast. But he hasn't done one of those videos in quite a bit. But that, of course, is only of interest to his voters. Most people ignore that.
Just by the way, regarding Labour's now on 267 losses. So, and there's another just now on another 29 councils. So 33 councillors in 29 councils, I think, probably. So it does look like they'll get to they're probably going to lose 300 councillors. Sorry, I don't know. It's not. I don't find it funny. I wish it had never happened, but it's just laughable how bad it is. Andy Burnham's acceptance speech. I'm just going to have to go and see what he says. I'm going to mute my mic.
Sam, is this your first major election?
Yes, it was my first vote, actually. I've just turned 18 in February, so I voted for it.
I thought so. Yeah, well.
Yeah. Oh,
you've come in at a strange time. You've come in at a strange time.
But fundamentally, as someone who lives in Salford, I couldn't really be. We've got a Salford council that I'm very proud of, and we've done brilliant in the election. We've held every seat, we've increased majorities in every seat, and we actually have gained a councillor in Worsley, which is Worsley have only ever had Conservative councillors. So now Salford Salford now has 52 Labour councillors, only 7 Conservatives because the other Conservative lost out to the Lib Dems. Now we have a Lib Dem. We have 1 Lib Dem. That's nice. And then we have an amazing mayor in Paul Dennett who won 59% on the first round. And then we obviously Andy Big Burnham is just making his speech now, having won an unprecedented result. And I'm just going to go and listen to this now and see if he declares his leadership bid for the Labour Party. And if not, I'll be very much disappointed. I'll just see you all in a couple of minutes.
Let us know. So, Swiss, sorry, I never got to say hi to you. And Swiss isn't even there.
So we're still going live.
I'll come back because I've just got the full result here. In 2017, Andy Burnham won 359,000 votes. He has now won 473,000 votes. So he's received an extra 115,000 votes. The Conservatives actually, I mean, they've gained a little bit because of the turnout, but reality, the Conservatives have gone from 128,000 to 137,000. The Greens have won 31,000. The Lib Dems have won 22,000. The Reform Party have won 19,000. And the good old English Democrats have won 9,500. Andy Burnham's majority is 335,000. His majority last time was 230,000. So it's, and I don't think there anything else needs to be said. He's absolutely smashed it. So I'm just going to listen to what he's going to say, and I'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Swiss is asking us, by the way, in the next 5-10 minutes to wrap up the stream, so we'll probably wrap it up at 4:30 then.
Okay.
So basically, in terms of stuff that is being said now, apart from Manchester, basically he got well, no, not that. Basically, there are reports that the Tories are looking for an early general election because of the results that they've achieved. They basically think that they basically want to strike while the iron is hot. They think that Starmer is going to be a disaster for Labour, that he will run a terrible campaign like he did in the locals, that he will have nobody campaign for him because he's alienated so many of the party's membership. And so what they want to do is they want to have an early election and they want to see if they can win more seats to basically just cripple Labour even further and basically shore up their support come the next election.
Possibly backfire against them, since, you know, the last time when the Tories tried to do an opportunity like snap election, they lost seats for it.
Yeah, when you've got that larger majority, I don't see why you would want to do this. Doesn't seem technically just, but
I think they won't go for it myself. I think it's just a bunch of cabinet members who are looking at Labour being so shit and going, let's strike while the iron is hot and finish the bastards off for good. I think in the end, the cooler heads will prevail and they won't go for a snap election in the end. Especially since there's going to be concerns around the economy moving forward, which they're going to need to deal with. I think if they do call an early election, which I don't think they will, I think this parliament will last the full term.
so do I.
They'll do it when there's a very strong economy and the growth of that economy looks like it's going to continue for at least 2 quarters. Until that happens, I don't think they'll go for an early snap election.
But I thought they really planned an election in 2023 because they want to get rid of the Fixed Parliament Act and begin general elections every 4 years.
I thought Fixed Parliament Act had already been removed.
Yeah, I thought it was scrapped already.
Wasn't it removed in 2019? As one of the first things they did after the that election.
I don't think it was. I think it was part of their manifesto.
Yeah, it should have been. Oh well. Oh, I have some last bit of news. Count Dankula has beaten the Communist Party of Britain candidate, but he got 254 votes, and and Daniel Lambie of the Communist Party got 194 votes. So he didn't beat the Greens, but he beat the Communist Party. So yeah, and despite all the things that are thrown at him.
The thing about it is that I think that what happened with Theresa May will probably lead to them not going for an early election, because I do think that they're cautious and they don't want to squander their opportunity. But then again, with 2017, you had a leader who was good at campaigning, who had a vision and a policy platform that was popular. You've got neither of those factors into account, and Starmer won't have a policy platform that's popular. He won't have any policies. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if the entire campaign was literally just like the local one: beer, flags, RNHS, and that is literally just it. I would not be surprised.
If they call election, what do they have to gain, really?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, there's nothing really to gain. They've got an 80-seat majority already. Well, 82 now, because of Hartlepool. 82 majority. They don't really need to increase it any further. Like, the only purpose really for it would basically be to get a Blair-style majority, but they won't get that. So there's no benefit to them calling
Not to mention,
election.
I think the Republic will be like, not another one. Oh, for God's sake, there's too much politics. Like that woman, and it's like, why do they need another one? You just got we just had one, because at this rate, we're going to keep having snap elections. We'll be having like an election every 2 years, because 2015, 2017, 2019. And if we do one this year, it'll be 2021.
You're going to get electoral fatigue, yeah.
Yeah, I also think that because of the scale of the elections that have happened this time around, not to mention that we'll have council elections, and we've also got the Northern Irish Assembly up for a vote next year, we'll just have electoral fatigue, because it won't be until 2023 when there's no big elections going on. So 2024 is honestly the sweet spot for the Tories, because it will be 2 years moved away from any kind of big election, both past and future. And the economy will probably be strong by then, and people will just have mostly forgotten about COVID and all the other things they messed up. So I don't see any benefit of an early election. I do think it is just cabinet ministers looking at Starmer being so terrible and letting the result get to their heads.
Because from what I can tell, even though from what political analytics are saying, even though this is a terrible vote share and all that stuff for Labour, Labour would technically gain at least 20 to 25 seats if the vote share it's the same from this local election, I guess. But so they would actually reduce their majority to a more moderate size. But yeah, granted, even though I think at this point we're not really convinced that Labour could probably win that many seats, but even if Labour just gained like 20 new seats, that's still a positive for them at least, and it's like negative for the Tories, because like you're trying to gain, let's see, seats, but you've instead lost it. I mean, it won't be like 2017 where not only did they lose seats, but they lost their majority. But still, it's like you did an election for nothing.
Hello.
Hello.
Just sorry to interrupt, but there's the Tories have held Aberdeenshire West. So
good.
and I just thought I'd share some nitbits about Andy Burnham, if that's okay. Who's just been resoundingly re-elected, which is fantastic. He's I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not trying to be favouriteist here, but everything he's just done in that speech shows all the qualities that I wish Keir Starmer currently had and that he doesn't have. Some of the nitbits from his speech are this: he said, don't give us devolution and be surprised if we answer you back. He said, levelling up is achieved when you give people the dignity of decent work with wages that don't have to be topped up by visits to food banks. He said that it's time for the PM, he says, must work with us. The time for debate is over. It's time for delivery. One of the independent candidates during his speech shouted and called Andy Burnham corrupt, and then was moved out of the. So you know, corrupt.
Okay, just one up.
That's probably James Field.
Hey guys, can you finish up, please? Swiss is asking if we can finish up.
But basically, I was just about to do that after what you were saying. So, I guess overall, to sort of summarise it, basically what we talked about, Labour did very well in the Welsh Senate. Labour have done pretty solidly in Scotland, but it could have been better. Done extremely well in Greater Manchester. But apart from those success stories, today has basically been more of the same. Labour just getting mopped up in England, and they're going to lose the West Midlands mayoralty. And I guess
See,
the final thing to do would be to basically read out the council elections in England. Tories have gained 10 councils and 231 councillors. Labour have lost 4 councils and 267 councillors. And the Lib Dems have lost 20 councillors and the Greens have gained 65. So that's the overall results.
what a bad 11th anniversary of Labour's defeat in the 2010 elections, because the locals are the same day as that election.
Just regarding Scotland, I suppose a good point to finish off as well. John Curtis has just said he now believes that the SNP will not get a majority. The current forecast is 63 seats for the SNP, 31 for the Conservatives, 22 for Labour, 9 for the Greens, and 4 for the Lib Dems.
Oh dear.
So
So
coalition with a 3-seat majority for this and for the unit, the independentists.
Off this result, the SNP and the Greens would basically equal their combined total in 2011, but not. They'd be one more than their combined total in 2011 when the SNP got 69 and the Greens got 2. In total, though, there's going to I'm not going to dwell on last thing. There actually will be no change for the SNP and the Conservatives. They're both scheduled to stay exactly the same as they were last time, which may actually, that may help the Conservatives in their arguments, because the idea that neither side has made any progress suggests that the independence argument isn't any further. And obviously, that's a basic argument, but there you go.
Okay, then. Well, that's basically it for today, people. We'll probably continue this tomorrow, although that'll be up to Swiss, because I hope anyway, final lot of results for the council elections will be over and Super Council election week will be ended.
At last.
At last. So, catch you all later, people. See you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.